My talk will be about a small reflection of what I do at my lab. So from that point of view, I will give you some insights. I called my lecture 10 little stories to be written before the next UPAC. I know you know the Bible, and I think I found in the Bible a scientific article. But I will talk about it, but I will not discuss the peer review process. When Nathan and me were discussing 2 months ago, he said, "You have to give a talk and I will help you. I will give you this book. Do you talk funny? You have to read it." And I did my homework. But if you don't find that this talk is too funny, okay, don't blame the book or the author, just blame me because I'm a scientist. This is the story I found in the Bible and I'm talking about. People want me to believe that a healthy soil and a healthy water, not disturbed by pesticides, is the way to sustainable agriculture. But looking at these facts and figures, I realized that in fact, nature is not so nice to humans. If you check this, what happens, then I must say, yes, although the pesticides were not here, they had a lot of problems in the past. Let's start with the first one. The water turns into a red color. It brings me to a little bit science, maybe the only scientific graph I have in my presentation, but I try to explain a little bit how it works, how we look at water quality and how they would have looked. In fact, it's about 3,500 years ago, the story of the 10 plagues of Egypt. But how does it work today? So we look at water quality, and we check the water quality at 3 different levels. The first level is the algae, the second level is the plankton, and then the fish are eating the plankton. And we let those 3 organisms be exposed to pesticide concentration. So we go from a low concentration on the x-axis to a high concentration. At a certain concentration, we realize that those fish or those algae or those daphnia, they are not living anymore. So then we say, okay, this is an ecotoxicological endpoint. And then at a certain time, we have to, okay, what is now water of good quality, what is now water of bad quality? Water of bad quality is water with an amount of pesticide that is higher than that concentration. So in this case, it is around 1,000 microgram per liter. So we look at the most sensitive organism. But what I realized today, that our friends of the environment, they ask more. They want us to look at much more. They don't want us to look only at those 3 organisms because they say you have to look at it in this way. Instead of 3 organisms, they will have about 63, and they look at each time at what concentration is that organism dying. So what happens then, okay, they fit a model on it, and then they found out with the computer model what is the safe concentration. And if we look at the safe concentration, it's about 1, so the ecotoxicological concentration is about 1,000 times less for people from the environment than for people for the pesticides authorization. And that gives you 2 difficulties. The first difficulty I will tell you now. As head of an analytical lab, we are not able to check or to analyze that low concentration because we are talking about ppm, milligram per kilogram, ppb, microgram per kilogram, and today it's ppt, nanogram per kilogram. So it's terrible low. And the second, I will tell about a story of our brother. Maybe you remember the fipronil crisis 2 years ago. It was a crisis where the chickens were exposed to fipronil. And my brother is a veterinarian at the slaughterhouse. And the government asked him, okay, those chickens are now contaminated, what to do with it? And do you want to destroy them? Okay, he said, let's, if you pay for that, the government, we can do that. But afterwards, they had to clean their equipment. And for cleaning that equipment, it is more than 1,000 liters of water that you need for that activity. And if you have fipronil in the chickens, then of course those fipronil can come into the water. So he called me, can you do an analysis? And I did the analysis. And I came out that analysis was about 6 ppt, so that very low level. But of course, I just talked about the graph. We had the normation for the environmental people that was 12 ppt. So just double of it. So then he said, okay, well, what do you want to do it? Okay, I said, I'm really experienced in bioremediation, so biopurification. Maybe you can just spray it on bare soil. That will also be a solution. Maybe you can just use it again as spraying water for the farmer. So there are a lot of solutions you can do. Okay, very nice, very cheap. Okay, very good. I will call the government. So he called the government. Do you know what they really advised? You know, very low concentration, extremely low concentration. They said to my brother, just send it and spray your thousands of liters in the flame of an incinerator. We will pay you for that. Thinking about that, I think, where are we standing now? We are burning water. Second point. Second point is about amphibia. Maybe some of you, this is not, okay, salamanders and reptiles are now in danger and the new authorization have to think about. Maybe some of you have heard a story about, it was presented on Monday, about salamanders, and the salamanders are in danger. In the Netherlands you have a fungus that is killing them and it's going over to Belgium and it's spread across the world. And anyway, maybe we end up in a situation where we have no salamanders anymore. But it's a fungus that does the job. So maybe the solution can be, if we want to save the biodiversity, is that we just spray a synthetic pesticide to help that kind of environmentally friendly animal. And that lets me think about what is exactly the definition of biodiversity, because a lot of people are talking about biodiversity, biodiversity. And then I'm thinking, okay, yes, a big pressure of the pesticides on the biodiversity. But then I start thinking, who was, in fact, having an impact on biodiversity? And if we look back in the history, the first persons that were, of course, again, the farmers. They went out of the bushes, and a certain day they said, okay, we will cut off the trees, and now we will grow our crops over here. But at that time, it was the first pressure, the first impact on the biodiversity. And then it comes me to the idea, instead of crying of biodiversity, then I think we have to start mapping. We have to start mapping what is the biodiversity we want to have in the forest, what is the biodiversity we want in agriculture, what is the biodiversity we want into the city. Because I went with Nathan to the football stadium, and I was looking at the grass of the soccer stadium. I was looking at the grass. There was no flower in it, so the honeybees were not welcome over there. So I was thinking, okay, maybe we have to define a city biodiversity. We have to define an agriculture biodiversity. We have to define, of course, a forest biodiversity or a sea biodiversity. So what do we want from biodiversity in those different regions? And we have to, yes, of course, we have to make some borders, and it can be smoothly borders, but it can also be just strict borders. There's a message. I want to see a clear definition of the biodiversity we want, and then I want to look if pesticides are really negative, yes or not. So the third, it comes to the point where, okay, I want to talk about invasive species. And in Belgium and in the Netherlands, we have at this time, we are faced with the Buxus moth. And Buxus, maybe you know that kind of trees, or you know it from Versailles, or you know it from somewhere. But anyway, these days they are in danger. In danger because of the Buxus moth. But what a lot of people don't know is that, okay, the Buxus itself, it is a toxic plant. If you give 750 grams to a horse, your horse will be killed. It will not survive if he's eating from the Buxus plant. That's the fact. So another story is going on, and we have the famous citizen science at this time, and those caterpillars that are killing the Buxus at these times, they say those Buxus are sprayed with pesticides, and due to the fact that the birds are giving the caterpillars to the young birds are dying. So we want to have all the citizens bring to the analytical lab the dead young birds, and we will analyze and we will show the proof of existence or presence of pesticides. Okay, that's another interesting research, but that's not really the research I'm looking forward to. In fact, I think this is excellent situation where we can talk with citizens about what is agriculture all about. Because what is the solution these days? Just cut off the Buxus and bring it to the container park, and the problem is solved. I look at it in a very strange way. It's just like saying to a farmer, okay, you have a pest, you have a disease, don't worry, just take the plow and you turn the ground upside down, and the problem is solved for you. So then we have no food anymore. So what I want to say, okay, let's talk about with the citizens about maybe pheromone traps, about alternative treating, alternative methods. Maybe we can talk about even a biotech Buxus, you know, we can modify it, whatever. So this is, we have so much warning system, we have so much good ideas that we can show the farmer that if you apply that, just like a farmer does in the field, that you can save the Buxus, but just saying throw it away is a very simple thing. Okay, so then I come to the point where I say, okay, flies, I thought about flying droplets, and then there's a discussion about, okay, the alternative products are not working so well as the chemical or the synthetic ones. What is really the problem? And I think the problem is, and this picture is my favorite. If you look back 70 years ago, if you look at that application technology of the synthetic chemicals, do you really believe that it was working so well at that time? In fact, I don't. This is the equipment we have today, precision application, but it's fully developed for synthetic pesticides. It's not developed for microorganisms, which the size is a little bit higher, or for certain big molecules or whatever. I think we have to look for the right application techniques for those alternatives, and then we will be so successful. And if we can do it in this way, okay, maybe it's more preferable. Okay. Dead cats and dead cows and animals. It brings me to a story. I was once, okay, you know the rapid alert system. It means that if you want to import food from outside Europe to Europe, you have to pass the border, and then they do residue control. And if your food is not okay, then they throw it away. I was once on the railway station, on the train from Bruges to the airport, and there was somebody, an organic guy, sitting next to me, and he was talking about, okay, that he was always buying organic food, and that he was so healthy, and so on. And I asked him, okay, where are you going to in Africa? And then he said, okay, Botswana. Okay, great, I have a student from Botswana at my department, and we are looking at food safety. And I said to him, okay, if you you have done so much effort to buy organic food, but if you buy 2 times food from the local market over there, then all your effort from a whole year to live organic, it will be lost. So it brings me to the idea, we are thinking as Europe, okay, if we protect the import, then is everything okay? But we forget that we as people are traveling around the world, so it means that if you want to have food safety, and if you only secure it within Europe, then it's, of course, yes, we forget that we live in a global world, so let's change the countries around. This one is, okay, problems with certain injuries on the skin or whatever. It reminds me about my master thesis. My master thesis I did on worker exposure. And I remember that the first field trial, we were a little bit too early, and the assistant and me, okay, were very nice orchards and very big apples, and I said, okay, let's taste one. And okay, it was very tasty. And then the farmer came and he said to me, he said to us, and he said, okay, do you know how many times this orchard is sprayed a year? No, I don't know. I'm new in the business. And then he said, it's about 26 times. I thought, okay, wow, what happens now? And afterwards, today I realize, in fact, and I know, consumer safety, I believe in Europe, we have under control. Don't worry. But exposure during and after application, personal protective equipment, I think in Europe it's also okay. But I hear too much stories of people that say, okay, in my country, and they are even doing it with bare hands, and they are spraying like that and things like that. This is really a problem. This is something we have to work on if we want to proceed. Climate change. Everybody is talking about climate change. Well, of course, we jumped on the car. Of course we jumped on the car. We had to. We had to do something on climate. So this is a picture out of our article on climate change, and it was very simple. Okay, you know, what happens with pesticides, what happens with species, okay, the temperature goes higher, so you have more cycles a year, so it means that you have to spray a little bit more, you have maybe pest that comes from the south to the north, so it means that we will have to treat the crops more frequently. And also, if you talk about rain, then it means that, okay, it's too much rain, and then you just spray it, and all your deposit is going and dropping off the leaf and the crops and the plants, and it means that, okay, you're losing that product. So that was climate change. But it also reminds me about, okay, climate change. And this is a picture I got 2 weeks ago, and it's very funny. I think it's not funny for the person who is living there, but anyway, you know, these days, as a non-professional user in Belgium, you're not allowed anymore to apply synthetic pesticides because the government is very concerned about the health of non-professional users. So they believe the synthetic pesticides are too toxic for non-professional users, and they put alternatives on the market. So you have the non-synthetic pesticides, but also you can do steaming. And in this situation, if you talk about climate change, then you have to be very careful, because then your garden can be completely dry. And if you start using a burning system, if you want to burn your weeds, then okay, it's an alternative, and according to the government, it's fully safe. But if you look at this, then I would say maybe it's not so. Last, number 8, it's again related to the grasshoppers and so on. It reminds me about a movie that Okay, why did it work, the chemicals, so well in the past? And we know, okay, I heard it a couple of times this week, okay, we used a huge amount and low toxicity and whatever. So why are the alternatives today not working that well? I think this movie will perfectly explain you. If we could apply the alternatives in the same huge amount as they did with DDT 70 years ago, then I think no one would say this will not work. And I hear you laughing. And in fact, I was laughing also. I thought, it's long ago, it's the old times, and we learned from it. History learned that we can use pesticides more safely than today. But about 2 or 3 years ago, I was watching television, and what I saw in the journal, I fell down from my chair because I saw the following. It was in Brazil. And if you remember the problem in Brazil, okay, it was a Zika virus over there. So it means that, okay, they were very smart in finding solution to treat that. And have a look at that, what they did over there. Do you recognize the car? I was so amazed that after 70 years we still have the old jobs. Before this presentation, I got a call, and it was from a journalist, and he asked me, when do you think that people will start changing? And they say, okay, the pesticides are welcome. I think yesterday we got the presentation of Dick Veerman, and he said, okay, in the Netherlands, the neonicotinoids are not welcome anymore, and now we see the disaster with the beetle growers, and finally we see that it cannot be done without the pesticides. Last one before. So this is what I call measuring in the dark. 70 years ago, it was very simple. In the 1980s, it was very simple. If we did an analytical job, it was or we detect it and it's a problem, or we don't detect it and it's no problem. Today, it's very difficult. We need to know at what level that the pesticides cause a problem in the environment, cause a problem in the human body. And it's just because we can measure so sensitive. And it reminds me about that picture, about measuring 000. And that man was very wonderful and showing to the broad public, oh, what are you talking about? It's so low levels. This is really the level that we are talking about daily when we talk about pesticides. And the final one is this one, the death of the firstborn child. And of course, I am concerned about the first or the next generation. And that's the reason why we started it. And I just want to tell you something, because I already participated from 2002, 2006, 10, and each time I was submitting my abstract, and each time I wanted to present for all of you, but each time I was not successful. I was too young. But today I was the organizer of this conference, so nobody could say, oh, you're not allowed to. So, thank you.